welcome. Yes, this looks like another Confessions podcast from your friends at BBC Radio 2. Thank you for downloading us. Stand by for another array of terrible tales then from the very sinful Radio 2 listener. Chances are you've got half a dozen since last you tried to send us one. confessions@bbc.co.uk. It's our own private email, by the way, if you want to tell us anything. This week's concise collection features a siblings streaky sprint, a priceless pound shop prank, skyscraping Sunday school shoes, and also a playful, a performing, a parrot. Here it all comes. Tonight's comes from Bob. Always, if it says Bob, it's always changed. Dear Father Simon, cheers to everybody, says Bob. I'm writing to confess a crime committed roughly 8 years ago, in the hope of obtaining your forgiveness as well as the forgiveness of the proverbial innocent bystander. News of him in a minute. My story starts innocently enough with a primarily adult sibling whitewater rafting trip in rural West Virginia. As the story goes, my siblings and a family friend made the trip together in hopes of taking in the scenic views of the area, as well as taking part in some good old-fashioned fun and trying not to think about deliverance.
Yeah,
because that's
all on our minds now.
That's not good old-fashioned fun in any way. We booked group camping. Now, group camping basically means 8 to 10 people cramped into a single tent with bunk bed cots. My oldest brother had brought his wife. My other brother came as well, but this type of trip didn't appeal to his wife, so he was flying solo. Also on the trip was my younger sister, her husband, and her best friend, called Sarah. We were all crammed into one tent, but we were determined to make the most of it by being the good-humoured family that we are. It was our first night of a 2-day trip, and we knew that we had a big day ahead of us, so several in our group were determined to get a good night's rest leading up to our adventures on the river. However, being a group campground meant that we shared our campsite with several other groups as well. There was a secondary group that had also made the trip, which consisted of the college friends of Sarah, my sister's best friend. Now, Sarah, being the common denominator between the two groups, was splitting her time between her adopted family and her soon-to-be rowdy college friends. The family group were attempting to wind down the evening just as the college group were getting warmed up with music and spirits and all the other things that most of us did in our earlier years. It wasn't long before my brothers, sisters, and their spouses began to grow a little frustrated and annoyed with the volume of the adjacent camp, and the grumbling began. Not that my family can't mix it up with the best of them, but this night was the one that they were determined to get some sleep, so in their frustration they turned to me. When asked to visit our neighbour's camp and request the volume be dropped, I, of course, took the mature action and walked right over there and simply requested them to dial it down. Actually, no, I didn't. Instead, I decided to go an alternate route and provide our fellow campers with a conversation piece that would distract them from their party-going ways, which in turn would decrease the volume of the evening's events. I left our tent and took the indirect route to the neighbouring campsite. This is where it all goes a bit revenant. Circling around the camp and ducking into the woods, I found a nice area to strip down to essentially nothing apart from my hiking shoes.
What?
Exactly. Now, what to do when shivering naked in West Virginia? Well, here's the answer. Not a question that's been asked very often.
Let's definitely keep that to the one mention. Yeah.
I crept through the shadows of the trees, observing the partygoers whilst awaiting my opportunity to spring my surprise. Once the proper lull in conversations had presented itself, I sprang from the bushes and ran directly through the middle of the partygoers who'd gathered around the campfire for warmth. I'm not sure that the group immediately recognised what was happening, but that all soon changed as I began screaming at the top of my lungs, "There's a bear! There's a bear! I'm being chased by a bear!" whilst running madly through the group. Oh, I was smeared with mud and blood, by the way, just for extra effect. As I left the campsite and rushed down a hill towards where the cars were parked, I had every intention of circling back around and gathering my clothes before returning to my tent. To my surprise, however, I ran directly into a pizza delivery guy who was caught completely off guard and dropped all his boxes. I simply nodded a hello and continued on my way. While there is much more to this story, Bob disappointingly ends it here. But he wants forgiveness anyway. He says, I don't ask for forgiveness from the partygoers. After all, they spent the remainder of their evening discussing just what the hell had just happened. Yeah. I don't ask forgiveness of Sarah, my sister's best friend, who, as it turns out, is now my wife. I'd like to think that my appearance in the buff had something to do with that. Now, I asked for the forgiveness of the pizza delivery guy, who was caught completely off guard. The look on his face can't really be described. He came to make a simple delivery and instead received a vegetable feast of his own.
Oh, well done.
An innocent bystander caught in the middle of a rational effort to bring balance to a raucous evening. So I ask, please, to forgive me on behalf of the pizza delivery guy. And all pizza delivery guys who've seen stuff over the years. Sister Bobby
Can
from
I just
the
tie in two statements? Rational effort, right, and streaking naked to achieve a result, to quieten down a group of people. When has streaking naked ever been the answer, really?
It's rural West Virginia.
Well, no, but anywhere, that's never the answer. I was going to say, actually, Bob, it's really simple. No, you're not forgiven. The poor pizza guy, did you pay him? He lost his pizzas. He may have lost money. And actually, it's never really the sensible answer. You are not forgiven.
Brother Matthew.
It strikes me Bob was a little bit too desperate to get naked, wasn't he? He wasn't...
I think he's done it before, hasn't he?
Yeah, he was desperate to get himself smeared in mud and blood and then trousers down and boots on and running through the campsite.
Vegetable feast, hello.
Yes. So I'm not buying the fact that this was his alternate plan. I think he just wanted to be in the buff. And who's ordering pizza on a whitewater rafting campsite? How does that work exactly? Getting back to nature, but I'm going to need my pepperoni passion. No, I'm not buying that either, so I am not forgiving.
Tonight's tale comes from Jason. Thanks, Jace. Dear Father Simon, the Forgiving Collective, my confession dates back to 1995, when my girlfriend, Joanne, and I were on a shopping trip to the beautiful shopping centre of Bradford. At the time, I lived in my first home in Bradford, whilst Joanne still lived with her parents in a posh part of York. At this time in our relationship, at least in my mind, we were considering a future together, and so were looking at various shops with home furnishings. I say in my mind, as I suspect Joanne was just looking to make the bachelor pad I called home a little more like a home, inducing me to cushions and candles and rugs, throws, bedspreads, cooking utensils and other items that apparently normal people have. I bet you're a throw kind of person, Matt. I bet you like a selection of lacy cushions on your bed.
Scatter cushions. Oh, yes, please.
I don't know if they had throws in 1995. I think they're quite a recent...
Yeah, it was called a blanket.
Oh, yeah.
That's what it... That's
rebranding exercise.
That's what it is. Anyway, so we get the picture about this shopping trip. Anyway, on this particular day, my attention had started to wane after the second cushion was apparently the wrong colour and the wrong weight. And the thing is that you can't get
the wrong weight
of cushion,
please.
Yes, you can. You need, you
What?
know.
Oh, there's nothing wrong with a heavy cushion, is there? Anyway, he's losing interest. Anyway, and plus the second thing was the thing I found for flipping pancakes turned out to be a fly swatter, and I realised that this was not going to be going well. As we left the one and only shop that Joanne recognised from years of shopping in York, we started to walk through the city centre, and I saw my chance to both shop and alleviate my boredom. Taking a sharp left into a shop doorway, I pointed out to Joanne some acceptable glasses, as is for drinks, not for eyes, on the first shelf. She picked one up, turned it over in her hand, and gave an almost impressed nod of approval. However, there was no price on the glass or the shelf, which I pointed out to Joanne and asked if she'd mind asking one of the busy checkout assistants how much they cost. I suspect it was her keenness to keep me interested in shopping that prevented her telling me to go and ask myself, but she readily agreed and patiently waited by one of the checkouts to get the attention of one of the hassled ladies. "Excuse me," she says, "can you find out how much these glasses are, please?" The assistant gave her a brief stare to check that there was no alternative motive, and then said, "It's £1, love." I realise that's not a particularly female Bradford voice, but it's what you're going to get. Yeah. It's £1.
Yeah. Because Ray Winston's now opened that shop in Bradford, hasn't he? Yeah, it's all gone wrong.
"Oh, thanks," said Joanne, and came back to find me. By this time, I'd moved further down the aisle, and working hard to keep a straight face, I pointed out some smaller glasses of a similar style that would go nicely with the larger ones that Joanne was still holding. "You won't believe this," I said, "but this doesn't have a price on either. Now that you've got a rapport going with the checkout lady, you wouldn't mind... Would it be okay if you asked?" "Oh, go on then," said Joanne, and she trotted back to the counter. After a moment, she came back. They're £1 as well, she says on her return. The staff don't appear to be very friendly here. Busy on Saturday, I suppose. I think you could ask them one last question. These wine glasses here, they would finish off the set. And believe it or not, they don't have a price on either. So Joanne carefully checked the glass and the shelf for a price, and on confirming that I was right, headed wearily back to the counter again. I know you're ahead of me. Unable to resist, I followed. As Joanne got to the counter, the woman looked up and saw her coming. She also saw me a little way behind with a huge grin on my face and shook her head. Before Joanne could open her mouth, the assistant looked her in the eye and said, "It's £1, love."
All right. Sunshine.
As we say in Bradford.
Yeah.
It's £1. Joanne turned to face me, a little bemused, only to find me wiping tears of laughter from my face and pointing at the huge shop signage hanging from the ceiling. Joanne didn't hang around in the everything for £1 shop for long. However, she did forgive me by the end of the day, and when she saw the funny side, she kind of thought it was okay. Plus, we've now been married for 17 years. Instead, I asked for the forgiveness from the staff, who had to put up with pointless queries on a busy Saturday, and the other shoppers who had to queue much longer than necessary, but particularly from the woman who said it's £1. Everything's £1 here. So, OK, Jason, thank you very much indeed. I reckon there'll be... You don't want to make stereotypes about the way people shop, but maybe people go, yeah, I kind of recognise that. Anyway, what do you think, Sister Bobby from the Priory?
Well, what I love about Jason is making each other laugh whilst doing boring jobs is really important. It's like the weekly shop. You know, the things like putting each other in trolleys and things like that. And,
is that really?
What?
Well, you know,
Putting
the things
each
that
other
you
in-
do.
This is
Putting each
things
other
we
in trolley?
do.
Well,
What?
don't you ever do that? You know, get the other trolley and, I don't know, sneak things in and things like that. To make each other laugh at the checkout. Don't you do those things?
Wait, no, you have the same trolley.
Okay, anyway, I'm really up for shopping fun. I think it's
Yes.
really important for any
Good.
relationship. And they ended up married, which is absolutely perfect. The thing is, I'm also aware that really it took advantage of the fact that Joanne wasn't aware of the pound shop. The only thing I'm going to say here, it's actually good to check, because sometimes in the pound shop, it's not just that it's £1. Sometimes you get 2 for £1, for 6 for £1. So it is worth actually checking. You know, Joanne is not completely an idiot for doing that.
No, she is. She didn't notice the sign that said everything £1. No, I think that was the clue.
But the thing is, sometimes it's 2 for £1 or 6 for £1. Jason, I love this story. I really did. I would hope someone would do that to me. I'm quite up for it all the time. Even with the assistants, I'm sure they get lots of times when people go up and say, "Can I just check that these 6 sticky tapes are really £1?" I'm sure they're used to it.
Friar Tom.
Forgiven.
Well, as I sit here on my piano stool in this wonderful studio, it's such a heart-rending tale from 20 years ago, isn't it? My feelings really are with Joanne here, to be honest. Jason, you're a bit of a rotter. That's my view. Also, the other thing that strikes me is
Yes.
that they did marry, but it took 3 to 4 years after this incident for the marriage to take place.
Well
so I'm
spotted.
not sure Joanne was quite so forgiving.
Maybe,
but
okay.
I'm with her.
No, but
absolutely.
that's
Not forgiven.
There's a
Jason.
journalist brain in that.
There it is, yeah.
Strange
wow.
body.
Happens
Straight
occasionally.
away.
Brother Matthew.
Incisive. I would normally say that Joanne was a bit thick. However, this has happened to me. I once went into a pound shop and I asked twice. There was a portable hand fan. How much is that? It's £1.
You never
How
did.
much are these batteries? They're £1. And they were really, really not very happy with me at all. And so for that, and so it's a simple mistake that all of us could make.
No, it's not.
Yes, it absolutely
See
is.
that sign? It says it's £1.
Yes,
It's
I saw
£1.
the sign when I went out of the shop, but who looks at the sign when you're going in? So I would say definitely not forgiven, because I'm on Joanne's side.
Quite right, Matt.
Yes.
Good,
Matt,
good.
it's £1.
It's £1.
And here we are with another Drive Time Confession, so gather round. And this one comes from Loretta. Thank you very much indeed, Loretta. If you miss any, there's a Confessions podcast. You can download it at the end of the week. Father Simon and team. My confession is one of true sisterly guilt, of which I have wanted to write for so many years, being a regular listener for some time. The timescales are a little dodgy and the ages involved are equally obscure. However, it goes as follows. Names definitely not on show, but my sister will know who she is. My sister and I were born 5 years apart, almost to the day. We were both November babies with 2 brothers in between. With so many siblings, sister always had to be the grown-up one, always taking care of, looking after, doing the right thing when mother required. Meanwhile, I just seemed to be always naughty, borrowing clothes without asking, reading the wrong books, never coming home when I should, always avoiding the washing up, stealing pennies from the purse, always arguing and avoiding going to Sunday school. Till I realised there were a few interesting male specimens attending.
What was that voice?
I have no idea, but at least it wasn't the same voice.
Derek
Ray
Nimmo.
Winston.
It wasn't.
Ray
It
Winston.
wasn't. Shut it.
Shut it.
I don't go to Sunday school.
Hooray!
Never been around when Mum needed something doing. Look, you're not painting yourself in a fabulous light here, Lorette, I don't think. Mother and I never, and still don't, actually see eye to eye, albeit I'm 51 and she's a lot older. And as a young teenager, I spent all my life playing sport, yearning for the day when I could wear heels. High heels. Real heels. But I never had my own money, so it was always start rights. Start rights and more start rights for my developing years. Flat, sensible shoes, by the way, if you don't know what start rights are. What?
Very good for
Yeah.
small children.
Yeah, but
growing children.
not if you want to have high heels.
No.
No, I find that the case. Not that I want to wear. I'm happy with my flat, sensible shoes.
You can get you some.
Wow.
I think
Here we go.
I was around 13 when I bought a fabulous, in my eyes, patchwork leather handbag with a zipped pouch in the front. I loved it. My older sister actually liked it too. Now, in my defence, I never minded sharing things and was always happy to involve friends in my adventures and share anything I had. So one day my sister was going away for the weekend and asked if she could borrow my new prized bag. No problem. I enjoyed her having to ask me. So, having had a lovely weekend away, it was only marred by the fact, she said, that she'd lost £15, which you can imagine, a lot of money back then, and we all hunted high and low to no avail. Some weeks later, when I used my bag, whoa, and behold, I found my sister's £15 in the zipped front pocket. Flashing before my eyes. High heels, Stead & Simpson. High heels, Stead & Simpson. Hello? Yes, to my absolute shame, I didn't tell her. I took the money and bought my very first strappy pair of leather sandals with fantastically high heels. Hello. There was, however, a downside. I lived in a small town. Everyone knew everyone else. I'd gone into Woolworths en route from school one day. My mother knew about it before I got back home. Where could I hide and wear these high-heeled sandals that I so coveted without my mother finding out? Well, my reluctant walks alone to Sunday school each weekend were the absolute solution, and all of a sudden I jumped at the chance. I'd never felt so glam or grown up, trotting to church via the back lanes, avoiding the main paths and practising my walk. Or was that a strut? The local sheep watching on were mightily impressed. The problem was I'd never worn high heels in my life, and I really couldn't walk in them. In fact, those young men at church didn't even notice my new confidence, and they certainly didn't notice my newly extended ankles, in my opinion. Maybe this because it was disguised by my new sloping, limping gait and my blisters. After a few weeks or so, the guilt of both stealing from my sister and lying to my mum, wearing and hiding everything as I exited the house, was beginning to take its toll. No longer a thrill, hiding them under my coat as I left the house, sitting down on steps further down the road to swap shoes, ensuring no one saw me, climbing over the bridge to avoid being noticed. Well, enough was enough. One final Sunday, as I walked to church, climbing over the bridge, I slipped and sprained my ankle. In floods of tears, it was finally all too much. I took off those sandals and I threw them into the stream, and I watched them like poo sticks as they floated out of view, gone forever. So here we go, says Loretta. I need to apologise to my mum, as I'm sure she always had an inkling that I was lying all the time, being as such I was a bad girl anyway. Thanks to her, though, I still have a decent pair of feet due to her insistence on healthy footwear throughout our childhood, and I recommend all children wear sensible shoes.
Really?
Okay. I added that
You
bit.
did, didn't you? Yeah.
But most importantly, says Loretta, I would like forgiveness from my dear, dear sister, who trusted and believed me when I fervently denied I had any knowledge of the missing money, defended me when Mother cross-examined me, she knew all right, and to this day continues to believe that I am innocent. But she thought I was a saint. She's the kindest woman I've ever known. She's my wonderful sister, says Loretta. A story of high heels, like it very much, like a bit of sisterly rivalry. Let's see what Sister Bobby makes of this, though, from the Priory.
Well, the thing is, the universe really dealt out its own punishment, didn't it? Because actually, in the end, you threw those shoes away. So, you knew, you had the guilt, you knew it wasn't really worth it in the end, and maybe that's the lesson that you needed.
That was the universe taking its revenge.
Yeah, definitely.
Possessing the shoes, making it uncomfortable.
Making it painful, and no one noticed. And then you had to walk down the back lane, so no one saw you anyway. So you really didn't get what you thought you were going to get by stealing the money. So say that's you really had your punishment. The thing is, though, you did steal from your sister, and you never know. She might have been able to.
Well, her sister left the money in her bag.
She'd forgot. Well, it wasn't her money though, just because she gave.
Finders
just
keepers.
I
think you'll find.
No, I think that's only maybe in your household. What she could have done is given it back to her sister and said, "Can I borrow that to buy shoes?" But said the universe has given you a lesson, but you are still unforgiven for stealing.
Okay, let's see.
money.
Friar Tom's here. What do you make of that, Friar Tom?
Well, of course, no one can condone such dishonesty, really. But the mitigating factors for me is that this is written with such wit, such eloquence, and there's heartfelt guilt there. Together with the phrase male specimens, poo sticks and Woolworths, these are the mitigating factors, so forgiven.
Forgiven. I think your performance from the piano stool was rather splendid there, by the way, because you're about 3 feet shorter than everybody else. Brother Matthew, what do you say?
This is almost like an episode of Tales of the Unexpected, wasn't it? Were the shoes cursed? No, they weren't. But, made a good story.
They might have been. The universe was having its say.
Yes, it was karma with the shoes.
Don't let the karma run over your dogma.
No. Okay, well done. Is it just me, or I never pay attention to people's shoes at all? And there's a huge amount of... There's this massive industry involved in having really nice shoes, and I'd never bother looking at people's shoes.
It's just you, man.
It's just me.
Yes.
It's just me. I'm the only person who ignores what people are wearing on their feet.
It's really difficult because this is radio, but Tom, our lovely news reader, has the most amazing shoes. So it's not girls only.
No,
it's not gender
okay.
specific.
Okay, no, it's not. It's just me. No,
It's
it
just
turns out
you.
Simon's got same shoes as well. So it turns out that it is a big deal.
It is just
what you're wearing
you.
your shoes. It is just me. But so that for that reason, I am not going to forgive.
Well, it's the people's verdict, though. Do you forgive Loretta? Yes or no? 88291. We are expecting more sisterly-based confessions to be a little bit of sibling rivalry. Very good. Sunday school confessions. I quite like the thought that there might be some of those to come. Shoes. There must be some shoe-based confessions.
Obviously.
High
Apparently
heels.
there will be now, yeah.
Welcome to another Drive Time Confession. This one's sent in by Mick. Thank you, Mick. And if you miss any, the Confessions podcast is there every Friday. So the one from last week is there already. bbc.co.uk/radio2. You don't have to miss any. Father Simon and the Holy Collective, I'm writing to you to clear my conscience of an act in which I was entirely blameless. I think we'll be the judge of that. About 2 years ago, after the death of my wife, I took early retirement from the office job I'd been enduring for the previous 40 years. I decided at this point to move closer to my children, so I bought a small semi-detached house in a lovely village on the outskirts of leafy Solihull. My son tried to persuade me to take up a part-time position at his firm, but I preferred to enjoy my retirement to the full by spending my days pottering around in my new garden shed, making my homebrew beer, and reading the obituary column in the local newspaper.
Oh, I'm looking forward to doing that.
Well, there's lots of...
yes, please.
There's lots of interesting
absolutely
hours
right. Yeah,
to be
I
spent
can't
there.
wait to do
I'm
that.
loving Mick already.
Yeah,
That's
it's
it.
brilliant.
I was enjoying life to the full, says Mick, and apart from an arthritic knee and a perpetual bout of wind, which is an unfortunate byproduct of the home-brewed beer,
Sounds like me.
I was in rude health. This peaceful idyll was only occasionally shattered by the squawking and incessant chatter from my late wife's green parakeet called Spanky. All day long, he'd call out, Spanky. Oh, do I have to do that? I don't
Yes,
know.
you do. You do have to
No,
do
I
the
don't.
voice.
you want.
Go on.
How does a parrot sound then?
As Ray Winston.
That's it. I'm at pieces of 8.
That was Bobby, by the way.
Right.
Outstanding.
So the parrot goes, Spanky, Spanky! Or, for a change, Spanky wants a biscuit.
It's Monty Python.
Oh,
this.
it's Terry
Brilliant.
Jones, isn't it? Or his own personal favourite, Spanky, Spanky, hello Spanky, hello Spanky, Spanky. Not an enormous amount of variety in the
he's a
phrase
parakeet,
book.
so,
It was a relief when he fell asleep or was eating, because then I could get some peace and quiet. To tell you the truth, if I hadn't promised to look after him to my wife, he would have been pushing up the daisies a long time ago, which I think sounds slightly threatening, but anyway, never mind. Spanky, however, did have a number one fan, and this was my 18-month-old granddaughter, Suki. Whenever my son and his wife visited, Suki would make a beeline for Spanky's cage, and I would let the annoying bird out to fly around, much to Suki's amusement. Although my son and his wife were worried about Suki's lack of diction, she was yet to utter a word at this stage. They loved to see Suki laugh and scream at the behaviour of the bird. Spanky loved this and would often perch on Suki's head and squawk through his repertoire, which, as I think I've told you, went, "Spanky wants a biscuit."
He's not the Messiah.
Go on, do the range.
No, I think you've got the general idea. That summer, my daughter-in-law had to have an operation, so I offered to look after Suki for the few days while her mum got back on her feet. This I found very easy and enjoyable. In the morning, I would take Suki out to the park, and then in the afternoon, after lunch at the pub and a visit to the bookies, which I think is a joke, I would let Spanky out of his cage and he would fly around entertaining Suki while I earned 40 winks in front of Bargain Hunt. Not that involved at the moment, I admit, really. This went really well until the third day, as I was dozing off in front of the telly, and I heard the parakeet shout, "Spanky!" Nothing unusual about that, but this was then followed by a similar but much higher-pitched voice, oh my goodness, shouting, "Spanky!" in return. I remained on the sofa slightly puzzled. As I said, I was half asleep. Then it happened again. "Spanky!" The parakeet squawked. "Spanky!" The higher voice replied. I sat bolt upright and looked across the living room. There was Suki where I had left her, and directly opposite her, on the handle of the pushchair, was Spanky in all his finery. "Spanky!" the parakeet squawked again. "Spanky!" Suki replied. Her first words, a magical moment. But I was in shock. How was I to tell my son and his wife that the first word to come from their blessed daughter's lips was Spanky? I hurriedly scooped Spanky up and put him back in his cage. I had some work to do. I sat on the floor opposite Suki, put on a serious face and said, "Daddy." "Spanky," Suki replied. Okay, I tried something else. "Mummy," I said. "Spanky," Suki retorted again. This was a complete disaster. For the next 30 minutes, I sat down with Suki repeating "Mummy" and "Daddy" over and over again, but she just said Spanky, and that was kind of it. There was no way Suki was interested in saying anything but Spanky, and she soon dozed off, leaving me with quite a problem on my hands. A little bit later, my son came to pick Suki up, and fortunately she was still tired and made no attempt to repeat the parakeet's name. That night, Father Simon, I hardly slept a wink, waiting for the inevitable phone call from my son. The following day he arrived, and so did my son. He arrived at the house with Suki, and he was positively glowing. You'll never guess what, Dad. Suki said her first word last night. Well, I knew it. I was doomed. I was the worst grandfather ever. She said, "Mummy." Well, we couldn't believe it, says my son. And then later on, she even said, "Daddy." We were so happy. So, says Mick at his final paragraph, my plan had obviously and bizarrely worked. I breathed a huge sigh of relief as I welcomed little Suki into my house again for a day of fun with her granddad. But here's the confession bit, please, Father Simon and the Almighty Collective. I need forgiveness from my son and his wife, who will now be hearing that Suki's first words were not, as it says in her birth book, "Mummy" and "Daddy," but actually "Spanky." I don't think they're going to alter their baby book, but anyway, Suki's now a grown-up girl, fast approaching her 10th birthday, and unbelievably, Spanky is still alive. And talking is a constant reminder of this incredible day. Anyway, we haven't had a parakeet story, but I quite like it. It was very good. Chance for a full range of impressions there. Thank you very much, Dean.
Full range.
Yeah, the full range. Well, at least the parakeet didn't come from the East End of London.
Yeah.
What do you think there, Novice Nigel?
Well, I think he was a bit of an absentee dad, grandpa even, dozing in front of Bargain Hunt, trips to the bookies.
And the pub.
And the pub. But there again, it wasn't "Mummy wants a biscuit" or anything like that. It could have been a lot worse. And I think it would have been very funny if he'd said Spanky or she had Suki.
Well, especially if Spanky was the name of the bird.
Yes, I just thought, I don't think the parents were worried at all, Mick. But as it was, it didn't matter. So, yeah, I mean, in the end, I thought he was going to do the parrot in. I thought that's where it was going to go.
I think he wanted to.
Or Suki was, or someone was, but it didn't happen.
But those birth books are they're special things. You know, the baby's weight. You know, the first thing the baby does, first words, it has to be "Mummy" and "Daddy" or something like that, not Spanky. It's
not when you
really
get to your third child. Anyway, so Mick, completely forgiven.
You don't keep any of those books,
know where the book is.
No, you can't even remember
what
what
the
their
child
name
is.
Yeah, what's your name? Can't remember.
Well,
Bobby from the Priory.
Yeah, what a lovely story. I'm really impressed that he trusted his dad with the baby, with your 18-month pride and joy. Can you look after this, Dad, and we'll come back later? I mean, that's a real big kind of moment of trust. And what a lovely retirement, I have to say. Bigger story there. What a lovely way to mix with your family. Look after your granddaughter. I have to say, the combination of spanky and any other word actually filled me with fear for a moment, because you never know what that child could have said. I think what you could have done is you just go, now they know. It's a lovely, lovely story for the child. You are forgiven. Add a footnote.
Yes. Whatever.
Matt. Yeah, I mean, no one, everyone lies in those birth books anyway. I mean, it's all, yeah, absolutely. And as far as as far as first words are concerned, who can remember what people's first words? And it's always first word was mummy or daddy. No, it's not. It's always something else. Yeah, exactly. Or it's something rude. So I am definitely going to forgive, if for nothing else, than the number of times we've had the word spanky in one confession. That must have been in the hundreds.
Do you think?
So definitely, well done for that.
And they were this week's confessions. Thank you very much indeed for making it to this far on this particular download. So if you have one, confessions@bbc.co.uk, that would be very nice. More in a week. And don't forget, you can listen to all our guest interviews online, all chopped up in nice, handy little segments. Rick Wakeman paid a very special tribute to David Bowie on Monday. If you haven't seen the video of him playing Life on Mars, do go to the Radio 2 website. It is a thing of beauty. Actor David Morrissey talked about Hangmen, his new play, and The Walking Dead. That was on Tuesday. The wonderful Sue Perkins entertained us on Wednesday, Tales of Bake Off, and our new panel game, which is insert name here. And Nigel cooked up aubergine pahi. It's a Sri Lankan curry on Thursday. All the details are online. Messy cabbage, if you get this far. See you next week.